Formal observation should happen every day in your classroom. And yes, I'm emphasizing that because I don't see it happening enough in the classrooms that I visit. And I understand why. It feels like you have so many other things to do, but it just needs to be a part of your daily practice in the classroom. Set aside 10 minutes to do a formal observation of what's going on in your classroom for those 10 minutes. Of course, the informal observations you do throughout the day are also valuable. So your notebook should always be with you so you can jot things down, but you do need that formal, clear, carved out time of at least 10 minutes to do an observation every day. It might be useful to make sure that, to help you make sure this happens, to assign yourself some observation tasks. In a given, maybe for 1 week, you want to observe exploration, the human tendency for exploration, and you want to see if you see it being displayed every day of the week that you observe. Or maybe you want to observe for great work or another second plane characteristic. You might decide to observe how the children choose their work. Is it a group choice? Is it an individual choice? Does it take them a little while in the morning? Maybe you watch how they arrive and walk in, or you watch how the day ends. Pick a task that's going to focus you for a day or a whole week and use those tasks to guide your observations. As you write down your observations, put a timestamp next to it just so you have a sense of how this happens over that 10 minutes you're really observing them. Another useful observation tool would be to, on a grid of the children's names, for over a week as you are observing, maybe in the first few minutes of your observation, just jot down what each child is doing. Right? Getting a drink of water, using the checkerboard, whatever. Just quickly jot down what you see each individual child doing, because if you gather that over a few weeks, you get some really interesting data of, oh wow, every single time, no matter what time of day, this child was getting a glass of water. Maybe I need to do a little more observation here. Or this child's working in all these different areas I hadn't even quite realized. Whatever you can gather from your notes, this can be a useful thing as well. Remember not to use any judgment in your notes. You could have an idea of something like that you could, jot a note down later about. But in your observations, we want these to be as objective as possible. And then go back. So you've got this observation practice of everyday observing. You need to go back and review these observation notes. Are there patterns that you can see? Certain things developing? What have you noticed about this one child or this group of children? And how can that inform your planning or your interactions with the children? As you reflect on what you have observed, you have to think carefully. Do these observations warrant a response or an action or an intervention of some sort? Maybe they do. Maybe you want to try something and see how that helps with this issue or this interest. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you want to observe longer and gather more data. So as part of your observation practice, there also needs to be a very clear practice of reviewing and reflecting on those observations and then deciding about a specific action. And then if you do take an action based on your observations, guess what you have to do? You have to observe and see what happens. And how did that work? Was it effective or not effective? And you need to observe and review those notes and reflect before you decide if another action needs to be taken. So it's a constant cycle that should be happening in your practice where you observe and take notes. You review and reflect on those notes, decide if an action is warranted, then observe again and continue to reflect. And it's an ongoing cycle. So this is the kind of observation practice that you really need to get moving in your classroom on a daily basis.